Hi, welcome to Nobody's Project Season 2. This is a podcast where we interview creatives about their art, about their passion, about, what they're making, how they're making it, how they have time to make it, their inspiration for making it, and, everything in between. In this episode, Season 2, Episode 6, I believe, Greyson is the one we are interviewing. They are a super talented makeup artist, special effects artist for short films, TV shows, commercial stuff, everything in between. And they talk us through how they create monsters, how they create wounds, how they create prosthetics, and all the other work that they're doing. And it's just so interesting to hear a little bit into this world. This is Season 2 of the Nobodies Project. We have Greyson, who is a makeup artist. Is that the best way to say it?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, awesome. And the first question I always like to ask is, what do you do for money? And then what do you do for art? And does it differ?
Yeah, it absolutely does. Yeah. So for money, as most freelancers right now, I got a part-time gig too, but working on set, doing like set days and stuff like that. And for like art and creativity and fun, I'm mostly just like sculpting at home and making monsters for myself.
Yeah, I love how it instantly goes to and for fun.
Yeah,
because you can totally tell that you're having a lot of fun, especially even on set, just doing your thing. We met doing a short film. I forget what it was even called, but it was almost 2 years ago, maybe? No.
The Woods, I think.
The Woods.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
right. I don't think I ever even saw that it came out or anything.
Me neither. Yeah, I never saw anything.
But I was absolutely blown away by their special effects and just the practical effects of the stomach that you built.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
And it's just like a crazy world. So I just really wanted to jump into that. Is like, where did you get started? Who inspired you? It had to be horror-esque.
Yeah.
Something in there.
Absolutely. So many horror inspirations, but like my beginning of my background is actually in theater and like live performance as a theater kid, and did that for a long time and kind of just got the bug doing live performance. And seeing horror movies and just kind of like that curiosity of like, how does that look so real? What is it made out of? How do you do that? But yeah, totally.
Especially like, I'm not so old, but old enough to where special effects, or at least like video effects now are so good that a lot of it's done digitally.
Yeah.
But when we were growing up, it was way more like it had to have been practical to
like
make it look
everything
that good.
Practical. Yeah. And I have such a soft spot in my heart for like 1980s, like cheesy slasher films, or like big, like we all get murdered at the slumber party.
Right. Where it's so typical, but you just enjoy the entertainment of like, how did they do that?
Yeah. Like the creativity of those kills too is just like so great.
Yeah. What's your favorite to work on? Is it stuff like that, or is it makeup-esque, or is it the building?
Absolutely. So like, the building of it and like the creation of a character and a creature. What like interests me the most about makeup is the transformative property of it. Like I love being able to like completely make somebody totally unrecognizable as like a creature or monster. So that whole process of like turning somebody into something else is what's so interesting to me.
I'm gonna have to ask, what's your favorite project that you've worked on, or favorite monster you've created?
Yeah. Oh God. I think it has to be Night Shift. Creating that, getting the opportunity to do a werewolf transformation is just like so coveted in my world. You
must have been like dreaming of that.
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely. When Carly was like, "Oh yeah, like we're gonna go full transformation. We're doing the whole thing." I was like, "Please, amazing." So being able to like create, and also I got the opportunity to do like phases of the transformation too, which was so
so
cool.
They show the whole thing. It's not just human
to like wolf.
Well,
right. And it's kind of like still she's in this space where she's transforming even as the wolf. It's just like so cool to watch it all happen step by step too. Yeah. And then one thing that I remember, me and my buddy Kyle were like endlessly fascinated with like how you made stuff. So like, could you just take us through like making through one thing? Because when you showed it to us, we were very surprised that it was like things we wouldn't think of
that made what it was.
Yeah, totally. There are a lot of different ways to like make prosthetics. There's a lot of materials that people use. My favorite personally is I like working with silicone the best. So that's what most of my prosthetics are made with. But yeah, you start with just like recreating the person's face by taking a copy of their face. It's called life casting. And you pour like alginate over their face and then recreate that with stone by pouring it into the alginate cast, and then you sculpt on that to make sure that like all of the prosthetics are going to fit the person's face correctly, especially in stuff where you're doing like narrative work or film and not just photo shoots. Like you want to make sure that it's fit to the person's face so that when they're expressing you can still see that. Then once you have your sculpt of their face, you can, sculpt with your clay, create whatever shapes you want, injuries.
Keep it consistent as well.
Yeah, totally. And then you take a mold of whatever it is that you sculpted, and then you pour into your mold your silicone or, sometimes foam latex if that's what you're working with, gelatin if you're on a budget,
Yeah. Going about like how you learned it, did you go to school for it, or was it like, okay, so you went to school for it? It wasn't just like, I watch a lot of YouTube videos.
Well, I also watch a lot of YouTube videos, totally. Yeah,
YouTube.
But I started my education at Art of Makeup with Rachel Wagner taught the special effects unit there, and we learned everything that I just talked about, from like how to do the life casting to pouring your own molds to sculpting gunshot wounds, whatever it is, so started there.
Is there anything when you are doing the special effects, is there anything that you just dread doing? Like it's just so annoying to do but you have to do it because people love it.
Yeah. Oh, like because people love it. Well, there's like steps in the process that are like tedious and annoying. But I mean, there's nothing honestly that I don't like about creating like weird monster stuff.
Yeah, there's folks. Not like it's not like doing blood wounds is like worse than doing other things. Like
no.
Maybe there's things you enjoy more, but there's nothing you're like, I can't stand.
I do drag my feet a little bit with commercial work. Okay. It's nice to be on set, and I love a paycheck. But it's funny like the difference between those two worlds of like just a little chapstick and mascara versus like a 6-hour monster application.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like you talked about a little bit like the necessary evils of like freelance, where it's like the part-time job, but also taking jobs because money's money.
You need that money, totally.
Maybe gets you some experience, but what other stuff besides building monsters do you do?
Yeah, so I've actually been kind of branching out into like more editorial and fashion makeup.
I've noticed
recently.
that on your Instagram.
Yeah, I've been having a really great time with that because it kind of like blends those two worlds. I have the opportunity to like work with like creating more shapes and contouring a little bit more to kind of like transform people. And I love a really bold look, and I love working with lots of color. That's something I love to do. So getting the chance to create stuff that's really like out there has been really fun for me recently.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
One question I like to ask, kind of shift gears a little bit, would be do you have a project that when you started, you were super stoked about, and even after you maybe created the monster or created the look, but then afterwards it just didn't get a good reception, or you look back on it like, oh, what was I doing? Oh,
God, yeah, totally. My first ever gig out of school, it was... so completely free, right? But my first ever gig out of school, it was for...
You're not getting paid right out of school?
What?
For creative stuff?
What? But it was a fan film for The Last of Us, the second game, The Last of Us, called Ellie's Revenge. And it did do really well. It had a great reception, did great on YouTube. But looking back at like some of my own effects from it, I'm like, wow, I was fresh. Just some opportunities missed,
Yeah. Some things that I've been talking about way more this season is like reflecting on old work.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy going back to look at your old work? Because I know some people are like, I don't even want to see it. It's so embarrassing.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's fun, and it's kind of cool to see, like, because I honestly, I haven't really been doing it for too long. And
how long?
I graduated in 21. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so just around like 2 years now. Nice. I hit 2 years in like February.
Wow.
So,
okay.
I'm still.
So when I met you, you were fresh.
fresh. Yeah.
Dang. All
Yeah. So yeah, kind of still just like finding my way and figuring things out.
I love that though. Do you have any like dream like projects that you'd work on or anything, or people you'd want to work with? Maybe like pie in the sky, like anybody.
Like, oh God, I love all the work that Atlas Effects is doing right now. They have an amazing, incredible studio. That's what I want to get into is like shop work long term.
Oh, nice.
So just like creating everything that gets sent out to set. I really love the process of just building, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, working with them would be like an absolute pie in the sky dream, you know? Yeah, but that's future LA stuff down the line, maybe, you know?
Yeah. There's pros and cons there, but
absolutely.
You talked a lot about building, and one thing when we talk about like practical effects, when you talk about building, is it mostly like building a monster or like something on a person, or is it like? Because I always remember just being blown away by like the OG Star Wars, how they did those things, like made miniatures and did that whole thing. Is that even in your realm, or is that something completely?
It's not in my realm right now, but I would love it to be.
Okay, you are interested in it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Down the line, I'm imagining going back to school and, you know, creating like smaller monsters on a scale and learning how to animate them and all of that kind of stuff. But
what's the animation studio here in Portland?
Leica.
Yeah. I mean, that's somewhat similar in the same. I mean, that's mostly stop motion stuff.
But about like building stuff.
Like getting into the building, going back to school for more just like tradition. I wouldn't say traditional, but like a wider scale of practical effects. Yeah.
I'm also really interested in like the blending of CGI and practical effects that's happening now too. Because so much of like, you know, what we do in post is based off of like smaller parts of prosthetics that are applied by like practical makeup artists. And then there's like a smaller like green screen that you can then in post do virtual effects on top of.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of shows that use kind of like half and half, you know, to kind of like root in that realism with the practical effect, but then kind of like bump it up to.
Yeah, I didn't even notice like at a smaller. I'm sure you're so much more tuned into that stuff. Like, obviously, most people see like, oh, Mandalorian's using the thing, and you're like, oh, that's practical and virtual. But
totally. I'm notorious for ruining TV shows and movies. Here's how they did that. That's how they did that. Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Because me and my buddy Kyle, he's big writer, and so like getting into more writing stuff, it just like ruins bad TV.
Totally.
Like it's either like the best TV now, or it's got to be like reality shows, because like bad writing will just drive you insane. I assume it's like the same thing with bad special effects and everything.
I do have a soft spot though, you know,
for like almost on purposely bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Or like I was saying earlier, like really cheesy, or like you know, like the first really big practical effects stuff, like The Fly, or
I was gonna ask what
like
some of these. Just like when I talk to Carly, I'm not gonna know any of these old horror things because I'm totally terrible with it. But like, what are some of those like classics that you like look for, or not even look for, but you just refer back to or go and guilty watch?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Slumber Party Massacre.
You pretty much quoted that last.
Yeah, Hellraiser, the original. I love the remake too. I know it's not really a remake, but the more recent Hellraiser is great too. But anything with that kind of like, Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Just great. Like way over the top.
Yeah, great guilty pleasures, you know. But there's like so much effects work that's on that, and like you know, guys that were like really pioneers in doing this and creating a lot of the stuff that we still use today. You know,
I was gonna ask how far the technology's come from there. Obviously, with the tech being integrated in there, but I'm sure like the techniques and like even just having YouTube and Reddit being able to ask questions and like everybody get
just
better.
Having that like resource of just like the makeup artist hive mind of like, you know, how do you do this? But it's come like a really, really long way, and so much of it is just like people being on set and having to like fly off the cuff and be like, oh shoot, we're doing this now. Like even like new forms of like how we create prosthetics have just like because of like people being inspired on set.
Going off that, do Do you have a moment that sticks out to you that you had to just completely improvise some kind of practical effect?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Every single time?
There's not every single time. A lot. It really depends. But yeah, no, there's tons of stuff that you can just kind of like do out of nowhere. Sometimes with like indie or like unpaid stuff, or it's everybody's first gig. It's like, oh, we're doing this now. We're adding this into it, or do we have a But I had this one gig where I had to. I haven't really dipped into like the world of prop making, but it's something that I would love to learn a lot more about. But yeah, I had this gig, and all of a sudden somebody was getting stabbed through the jaw, unbeknownst to me. And
Photographer Molly is distressed right now.
oh my gosh! And we needed like a quick effect for that, and we didn't have any prop knives with retractable blades on set. And so we like cut for the night really quick. I think it was like 9:30 at night, 10 at night. I went home, recreated one of the prop knives that didn't have the retractable tilt on it, and created one, and then brought it back to set the next morning, and we got the shot. But yeah, just kind of like being like, fake it till you make it. Like, I'll make the prop,
Especially being relatively green. I can totally relate to like in design when somebody's like, oh, can you do that? And you go, yeah, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
And then in your mind, you're like, I got to figure that out.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Exactly. I'm doing a gig. We're not sure when it's going to happen yet, but in the foreseeable future, and I'm exploding quite a few bodies, and I'm like,
fun.
Yeah, I got it. And I'm just like in my backyard right now, like blowing up bags of gelatin.
Your neighbors are like...
I had to like knock on all my neighbors' doors, like, hey guys, so
I'm not a terrorist.
This is what I do for work. Yeah. Totally.
Just being able to like come up with stuff like that, do you find yourself doing that with just everyday stuff now too?
Totally.
Where you're just like creating little things that make your life easier.
Yeah, just like embrace that spontaneity too of like, oh, I have this idea, and like now I'm gonna, because so much of what I do is so visual too that like it's hard to take it out of my brain and put it, in a format that a director or producer will understand it. So just kind of like taking that spark of like, oh, I want to make this, and then like actually creating the thing, and just like diving in.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to, especially with like. See, with like photography and design, it's what you should do. Yeah. But I feel like with effects, it's like if you don't, everybody notices.
Oh,
like you're like, oh, I didn't go 100%.
Oh my God, the amount of pressure on set when like, because it's cool too. It is really cool to watch.
To be that person.
Yeah,
like,
no, totally.
Like me and Kyle were endlessly fascinated with you. That's why we were like that. But I could imagine that pressure is like that on most sets.
It's like kind of fun though, honestly. Like I said, I was a theater kid my whole life, and I'm also a Leo. So I'm like, everybody watch me do this cool thing. But I've totally had mishaps on set where it's like, oh dang, like that was not perfect. Like we'll go back to one, we'll try it again. Lose like half my audience. The crew's like, go to
How do you going off that, how do you deal with the inevitable imposter syndrome?
Oh God. With patience.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, totally. Just kind of like it goes back to kind of like what we were talking about, like looking back at past work of my own and being like, I would probably do it this way now, and kind of having that hope of like, even if I'm kind of screwing it up now, in 5 years, like I'll be looking back and being like,
screwing up a little bit less.
Perhaps. Yeah. We'll see though.
Yeah. So with your thing being, I wouldn't say like 100% dependent on a script or anything like that, because obviously you can do photo shoots, you can do stuff that's just for what you want to do. Yeah. Do you ever go through like creative ruts? I'm sure you do, but the sense of you get a script, so you're like, oh, I have to make this. This is what I get to make, and then blah blah blah. But do you ever go through creative ruts, maybe with like how you do it, or finding the motivation to take on jobs, do stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, there are like parts of the process that I don't really love doing, so that can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes. Just like the mold making process is very lengthy and tedious too. So working with folks that are like on a time schedule and like doing lots of like checking in can be super like overwhelming occasionally. But yeah, I mean, ruts are kind of inevitable. It's more about just like kind of getting my hands into something. I'm one of those kind of like dive in and do it people. So just kind of like bringing out my block of clay, even if I don't really know what I'm making yet. Just like throwing it down and making like a wound, you know?
Which just sounds so wild if you're anybody but you.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is just like, I wouldn't say forcing yourself to do it, but like knowing that you enjoy it. So you're like, okay, I'm going to just do it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like waiting for that inspiration to hit or waiting for somebody to reach out to you to be like, hey, do you want to do this for me?
Yeah.
It doesn't always happen.
Yeah. I love like, you know, like watching movies for inspiration too.
Yeah.
If I'm feeling stuck, just like watching something that I love and kind of being like, oh, well, make a nose like that or like that brow piece or was really cool, you know?
Is that where a lot of like, I would go inspiration would be like, you just watch somebody else do it and you're like, okay, I'm going to just straight up remake that. Because I know I've done that for like logos or animations. I'm like, ooh, that animation looks really cool. I'm going to try to remake that.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally a part of the process, definitely. But I love being able to like take an idea and kind of like run with it and put my own kind of spin with it. I'm very inspired by like camp and specifically like the queer lens in horror, and I love to be able to like bring that to my prosthetics too and kind of like take that spin.
I love that. Yeah. Especially with special effects, I'm interested how creating your own style, how you get there, because I feel like a lot of it's like, oh, try to make this as realistic as possible. Where does the style part, I mean, maybe that's just for like wounds or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But where does like the style part come in? Because I feel like with your art, everybody has a different style.
Yeah.
Whether it be a little variance, but can you notice it? How's it come about?
I think it comes mostly into play when I'm creating like a character, you know? Because like you said, recreating wounds, like you want to be as realistic as possible. And so much of that depends on like the script and the placement and, you know, what angle they got stabbed from or whatever it is, you know? But when you have the opportunity to create like a whole look or a whole creature, you really get to put your own style into it and bring, you know, stuff to the table that isn't just dependent on like,
I'm sure it depends on the director, and everybody involved. But how much creative freedom do you typically get when you get to just like create a monster?
Honestly, a lot.
Really? Nice.
Honestly, a lot. And I've probably just been fortunate with the folks that I've been able to work with up until this point. But it all starts with like me reading the script and then just having a conversation with the director, you know, like, or with the writer as well is amazing always. But like, you know, what is the inspiration for this character? You know, like what are their objectives? What does this like character want to? And that influences so much of their look depending on like, you know, cause we are responsible for creating some of the facial expression and the vibe, you know,
especially with the monsters for sure.
Totally.
Or at least having it be available to the actors to actually use the expressions.
Making it a tool for my actor is so important to me too, and like giving them the opportunity to kind of like settle into that character while they're in the chair and like feel that transformation, get into that headspace is really cool to watch too.
Yeah. I'm always curious how it is like interacting with actors in the sense that you're just like, all right, you got to stay still and like just trust that I'm just gonna do this wild stuff to you and it's just be okay.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Got a whole monologue ready to go for
absolutely.
it every time.
I got all my like little lines of questions, like what are your allergies and you know, all that kind of stuff. And it's really fun putting people into character makeup like that who have never worn anything like that, or especially like folks who like don't really wear makeup on a regular basis, and it's so different from beauty makeup. You know, I'm working with like glues and like silicone products.
Like this stuff might not be comfortable.
It absolutely won't. That's another thing too is learning how to like keep and create an environment that's like fun and positive while somebody is like getting in makeup for 4 hours and then out in the cold, freezing on the ground, covered in blood, and
Yeah, and just like being there to help them as well, just like comforting wise.
Yes.
Being like, okay, I know you probably should be freaking out right now, but it's totally fine. It's cool. We're gonna be okay.
That's a huge part of the life casting process too, because it covers your whole face. Nose, mouth, eyes, everything.
That sounds terrible.
And then I cover it in plaster, and I take it off your face afterwards. But yeah,
you gotta be real okay with claustrophobia.
Spa mindset,
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I wanted to hop right back into it and talk about some of the stuff you have coming up, and most interesting one was like the prosthetics for non-movie stuff.
Yeah, so I'm definitely I've got a couple of shoots coming up at the end of this month, and I'm doing a kind of like a lion tamer kind of vibe for a photo shoot.
Nice.
It's for the second episode of Buried. We just started launching into that. But yeah, just taking more time this year for myself to work in my apartment, which I call my shop more, and just create more prosthetics. I'm working on hopefully like starting to sell some of my own custom prosthetics, either that you can order whatever you want, or I'm gonna have a line of stuff that you can pick up too. Kind of start selling those online, probably Instagram first, and then if my fabled website ever becomes a thing, doing that as well.
Yeah, I love that. And would it just be for like Halloween stuff, or would it be just other random stuff? Halloween,
selling to other makeup artists for photo shoots or sets, working with... I think getting online will give me the opportunity to work with folks from wherever, which would be incredible. Just having like work be accessible to folks if they want to bring it on for their own movie or photo shoot, film, whatever.
Plus, just knowing that it's available and knowing that you're available to do that would be huge as well.
Absolutely.
Brand new audience to go into as well.
Yeah, just kind of make myself a resource in that way. I would really love to make the special effects community in Portland a little bit larger.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about that. How big is the community of makeup artists, maybe in Portland or broader? And how did you find that community? Or was it just, I want to go to school for this, hopefully there's a fucking community out there.
I mean, it's infinitely huge. The community of makeup artists in Portland, we have so many talented folks working here right now. But I think what's going on, what's happening is that everybody is working as an individual, and I think that it would be really cool to gather multiple makeup artists and be able to work off of each other and create a shop and really produce some cool stuff.
Obviously, with a lot of the movie stuff, there's this huge allure of LA and anything like that. Is that something on your radar? Is that something that's like, oh, inevitably I'll have to go down there? Or is it something that, no, I'm just going to make my own path here?
I definitely want to like continue my education in special effects as well, because my first round at school was like very, very brief, and I would say mostly inspiring. And I've been doing a lot of like...
I wish my school was like that.
A lot of like my own research afterwards on like how I want to like move forward. So kind of like getting that like secondary education of, like I was talking about earlier, like learning how to create my own miniatures and learning how to combine CGI and practical effects. Those are all things that are on my radar. And those are all things that you kind of have to go to LA to do right now. So that's definitely something that I'm thinking of doing in the next few years. But my goal is to go out to LA, further my education, and then come back and bring that to Portland. Because we do so much filming of fantasy and horror here, and we have great forests for it and locations. It's so much of what we produce here that I would really love to, keep a lot of that practical effects and the makeup artistry of it, which is such a huge part of horror cinema. To keep that in Portland, I think would be so cool.
Oh yeah, for sure. my first real like dipping of the toes was at the set that we were both on.
Yeah.
And realizing that there's such a big film community out here.
It's huge.
Yeah, I for some reason just was like, well, it's LA and maybe New York.
Yeah, totally.
And I've heard Atlanta's a thing now. It's
Yeah.
like that's like all I've really heard.
But the film community is like thriving here.
Yeah.
You know, even as a newbie and as fresh and as green as I am, like I've been able to get so many incredible opportunities. I was able to department head on like several different shoots my first year out of school.
It's huge,
you know,
huge experience.
yeah, just incredible. So I've been able to like really get my feet wet doing a bunch of stuff that I may not have had the opportunity to do in LA. And I want to kind of create and maintain that space for other makeup artists as they're graduating school so that they can have these opportunities as well.
Yeah, pass the torch along a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
You talked about doing a whole bunch of things, and I'm notorious for saying that I'm like a jack of all trades. And I'm interested whether your journey or like with others in the makeup artist area, like do you typically pick one thing and just really go down that rabbit hole, or is it better to be a jack of all trades?
I think financially, it's better
you
to
are
be
a
a
freelancer.
jack of all trades,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I never turn down work, and
Yeah.
I love, you know, doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that as a person, it's hard to not find something that is kind of like your niche and your specific,
Yeah.
like what you really love to do within that world.
100%. And being so green, it's like maybe I haven't even found it yet.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
I may not have. I'm all about like experience, fresh experience, and getting
Yeah.
to try new things.
I was earlier in my career, I was definitely almost envious of people who are like, all I love is animating, and I just want to animate. It's like,
Yeah.
oh man, you know what you want to do.
Yeah, like
But-
you're locked in.
Yeah, but now I'm so grateful that I tried I'm trying a whole bunch of different things and
Yeah.
doing a whole bunch of different things, and I just enjoy getting my hands wet in everything.
Yeah,
and I feel like
absolutely.
with special effects, it has to be similar because it just seems all so interesting and exciting.
Yeah, it's all so fun to do, and it all has such a different process. You know, I'm gonna bring a completely different kit with me to like an action shoot
Right.
as I am to like, you know, a fantasy.
Yeah. Are you
shoot.
partial to a genre, or are you just open to it all?
No, I'm kind of just open to it all, you know? Yeah.
I'm trying to think, like, obviously it's action. I mean, obviously makeup for some more dramatic stuff, I would assume.
Yeah.
But I'm so keen on like comedy that the only thing I can think of for comedy with prosthetics is that the I Think You Should Leave sketch. Of course, yeah.
Yeah, totally,
Yeah.
totally.
But I was like thinking of like how much special effects in comedy. I mean, I guess like injuries maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been talking to somebody about working on a like a sketch comedy show that they're doing here.
Really?
And they need like, you know, like old age makeup, right?
yeah,
or like,
fair,
you
yeah.
know, like maybe like a funny nose, or if somebody's like a character, or like maybe someone's like a witch or something,
Yeah.
you know? So there's
Okay, yeah, fair
always
enough.
kind of an opportunity in like a bunch of different
Yeah, it kind of
genres.
pops up in almost everything.
It really does, you know? Yeah.
Kind of shifting gears back to, you were talking about like selling stuff on Instagram and doing all
Yeah.
that stuff. And this also goes into community, how does Instagram, social media, getting your name out there, how does that sit with you?
Oh yeah, it's, you know, a love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about imposter syndrome earlier too. You know,
Yes,
it's so
yeah.
hard to just be like, here's my art, look at it. I hope that
Yeah.
you want to like it and give me a comment, you know? So that's for me the most difficult part of social media, is just kind of like putting myself out there and paying attention to like when I'm posting and
All that silly
the
stuff,
whole
yeah.
algorithm thing, because it is really huge. It's how I get most of my work is through
It's mostly through
Instagram
oh, really?
or Facebook. Weirdly
Facebook.
enough,
Nice.
yeah, you know. So it's like having that social media presence is so heavy, and it's hard to know too on a professional account how much of yourself to put on there
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah.
Yeah, because you want people to hire you, obviously, for, you know, your skills and stuff,
Right.
but you also need to align with people.
Right.
And so there's that balance of like, am
Yeah.
I completely, like, obviously you should completely be yourself, but how much of that do you share?
Totally.
Yeah.
And I'm like a weirdo, so it's like, you know, little doses. But
Yeah, you're in there. A question I tend to ask is, if you had the opportunity to gain 1 million Instagram followers today, or keep your current following, which would you take?
Oh, I would keep my current following.
Oh,
100%.
nice.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it would almost be overwhelming and would kind of take over my wanting to
Without pressure?
actually like create stuff, and
Yeah.
and I would be so focused on like my social media presence.
Yeah,
You know,
you're like, I'm an influencer now.
yeah, totally. I'm like famous. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think I would keep my current following. It's so much
Yeah.
easier to, really put yourself out there.
To
when
grow it yourself
think of like
instead of
900 people or something
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah. One thing that you also mentioned during the break was doing prosthetics for people like in the queer community and all of that. Could you talk on that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, something that I would really love to start focusing more on is like offering like gender affirming makeup consultations, talking about like everyday makeup that you can wear to help present yourself in the way that you would like to. And also creating, like silicone packers or chest plates for people who are gender diverse, to be able to kind of like experience that body for themselves.
Yeah, I love that. I think like the biggest part is the education around like that's available and possible to do. Have you been started doing that, offering that? I think just like that education piece is huge.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, whenever I'm working with anybody, and this is probably because I am trans, I think about how does this person want to present themselves and what can I do to make them feel the most affirmed and like beautiful, right? Yeah. So thinking on that, like offering like a gender affirming makeup consult, being able to help people with being gendered correctly throughout their day is something that I'm super passionate about anyway. But being able to help people like look in the mirror and see like themselves as well is huge for me too. So I would love to be able to do that for folks.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I love how you can take something that, sure, you can do it for creative stuff and all that stuff, but also put it towards a meaning that's, even more than entertainment. It's for body, affirmation and stuff, which is huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really love that stuff. And then would that go on would that be in part with some of the things you were trying to offer like through Instagram and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm planning on launching my website soon, hopefully, and offering like makeup consultations, gender affirming or not, you know, and also like selling prosthetics, anything from like face wounds, neck slashes, devil horns, costume pieces.
Have you had anybody reach out to you about buying stuff?
Totally. Yeah. Halloween is very busy. So I've definitely, I've made gills for people before.
It's the most odd, or not even weird or odd, because I don't it's I was not expecting that.
Right. Oh God, I don't know if I think the gills were a weird one. Yeah. They were doing a mermaid.
Oh, that's awesome.
A mermaid look, and they wanted something that was
was
a little
creepier.
Fit
where it would go.
This weird fish man. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Awesome. What about if you could go back and work on a team that made a movie? What movie would that be? You got to help make the wounds for blah blah blah, Hellraiser, whatever it is.
God.
Nice. That's how I know it's a decent question.
That is a decent question. God, I do think that I would have to say the most recent Hellraiser, because the Cenobites were just incredible, and I know the amount of work these people were wearing, head to toe bodysuits of silicone prosthetic. They were in
That's
full suits, and it's just the amount of work that goes into that, not only just months to a year before production.
And the sketching and the designing of it beforehand too.
Yeah, and just to be able to be a part of a process on such a large scale like that, of not just these characters and these creatures, the Cenobites, but also all of the horror makeup that happens on that shoot too. All of the blood effects and the wounds and being able to do and see both of those sides is so cool. Yeah.
What about like when you said you've ruined watching movies for you and other people?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are the things, while I definitely do the same thing with writing, I also geek out about when things are so good. What are some small things that like only you and the people you've infected with this knowledge, what are some things that you like freak out about? You're like, oh, I cannot believe this is that good.
Oh my God, yeah. It's
like, give me the real small detail.
It's like the like breaking bone stuff. Any effect where I can see like the actual like inside of the person's leg. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. Like, and like that like protruding of the bone on like a timed effect like that is so complicated to like create, and also to, you know, get on time, and the amount of like rehearsals that probably had to happen and in time for them to get that effect to happen, that like that bone snap. I love that. That's always so cool to me. Or like a neck break, anything like that is like, I'm like, awesome.
Just anything. Yeah. And how much does I don't know if this is your part in it, but like the main thing I took away from that is like, the thing I thought about is the visual, but the sound that goes with it. Yeah. Is that something that you like, the Foley, like that's
usually not me at all. Okay. Yeah, no, that's whatever sound magic is happening in post to make that happen. I mean, sometimes
you guys work together a little bit, I would assume.
A little bit, yeah. You know, definitely talking about it, and we love a pre-production meeting.
Of course.
But yeah, no, that's not me at all.
Okay. What is like the project coming up that you're already signed on to do, or maybe there's talks to doing, that you're the most excited about? Yeah.
So I have a rap album music video coming up that we're going to be shooting hopefully within the next few months to 6 months. It's going to be my first kind of like foray into the music video scene, so I'm super excited about that.
That sounds dope.
But it's like, the inspiration is like old school Power Rangers, like Godzilla vs. King Kong, Battle Royale. Incredible. I'm making these like huge body suits for it.
Nice.
I've been playing around with like how to recreate a boombox as a chess piece, you know? So just doing some really cool stuff. So I'm really excited for that one. It's gonna be really
awesome. Fun. Awesome. Yeah, that sounds incredible. That sounds awesome. Producer Bradley over there is just cheesing his little head off about it. But
let's talk.
What about, I think the one that kind of got you, or I interviewed Carly and I've interviewed Yasmin. How was working on Night Shift? Just because at this point I feel like we have a pretty good connection with Night Shift.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, Carly looped me in super, super early on in the process, and we had the opportunity to, I don't know if anybody's worked with Carly, but I know you have, but she's phenomenal to work with, and being able to plan things and communicate so clearly early on. And she really gave me just like free reign on how I wanted to like create this, and like what I wanted to do for the transformation, and just like really like applauded my creativity and encouraged me.
The creative freedom to just really express yourself a bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it was just like a phenomenal experience, and it was, not my first time department heading, but it was my first time working on something with this much special effects department
super
heading.
Heavy,
and it was just like a whirlwind. It was wild. We shot over the course of like 6 nights, overnight shoots.
And not like, it's at night like 5 to 8. It's like call time is at 10.
Totally. So I'm doing like some of the most complicated work in my career to this point at like 4 a.m, like 7 Red Bulls deep.
You're like, oh no, I am this. Like,
totally.
This is real. This is what I do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just, and getting that opportunity to really just like get in there like that. That's like such a dream transformation, dream monster for me to be able to make in my career, you know? So
talking about I'll have 2 more questions.
Yeah.
Dream monster. So you said the werewolf. Is there another dream monster that you're just waiting to make?
Yeah, I really want to make like a.
How you instantly have an answer.
Totally. Yeah, I really want to make like an ooey gooey fish guy, like a.
Yeah, going back to the gills. Yeah.
Totally. like a slimy swamp monster, right?
Oh, interesting.
Like
yeah.
missing link vibes, like
Yeah.
something truly gross and slimy. I love that. Like. The goop factor.
The
yeah.
goop factor. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have a quote for that. The goop factor.
The goop factor.
Yeah. And then the last question is subjective for everybody, but I like to ask, at what point or what milestone would you get to where you're like, oh, I made it. I'm doing it.
Man, I think once I'm like fully working just in makeup, that's like my final, like that would be, I would feel very successful, you know, to be just like truly supporting myself by doing what I'm passionate about.
Love that. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tend to also ask people who aren't doing it full time yet, like, oh, would money make your art better or worse? But I know the answer for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would make it better unless it's like up in the budget for the production.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's no. I still take on free work. I still do trade for print. There's no like. It's for me more about the vision of the shoot and what it is we all want to like create together, and the opportunity for like what I'm gonna get to do. You know, if it's like something sick, like I'm exploding some bodies, like I was talking about, and that's like a free project that everybody's doing for free. We're like, that would be cool. Yeah. So I mean, I don't think that it really impacts my work or how much of like my foot I put into it.
Yeah. And to call back from like the very first thing I asked you, the main thing I took away was like, you're like, oh yeah, I do this, but it's for fun. It's fun. I'm having fun.
Yeah. It's really just because I love it, Yeah.
Which is why anybody should do anything like that. But
for sure.
If there's anything quick you want to like plug or anything like that, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. It's super fun talking to you, and honestly, like one of the ones I was looking forward to the most, just because it's so interesting to me.
No, it was so fun. It was so fun. Yeah. Please check out my Instagram.
Yeah. We'll tag it. There'll be a thing. Yeah.
To do the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, that's my whole plug. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on.
Yeah, totally. I had a great time.
Awesome.